Hey guys, in this week's video, I'm actually pretty excited about it. So I'm going to talk about throwing athletes, so quarterbacks, pitchers, baseball players. This also includes volleyball outside hitters. I work with a lot of volleyball players, so I kind of throw them into that throwing athlete category. This one is really exciting for me to talk about because I've spent most of my life as a quarterback or as a pitcher when I was younger. So this is something that I work a lot on in my own training, and it's kind of a big part of what I've set up complete strength-wise for this gym to work with athletes, is to try and bring these good programs for the throwing athletes to not only improve their throwing performance, like power, velocity, but also keep them injury-free and keep a shoulder and elbow as healthy as possible. So two of the things that we're working on with the throwing athletes are injury prevention, trying to heal or prevent those overuse injuries that are really common in the shoulder and the elbow. And the second thing is we're trying to improve power, velocity, speed for the pitchers. And so the overuse injuries occur typically in the shoulder and the elbow because of the throwing posture so think of throwing a football, you're going from external rotation here, the shoulder, so they're bringing the ball back, and then to throw, internally rotating the shoulder this way, as well as internally rotating the elbow upon the release. So when we repeatedly do this several hundred times, we start to get this internal rotation of the shoulder here. We start to get a little bit of that rounded posture too much, which can cause a lot of impingement in the rotator cuff tendons in here, as well as some inflammation and some tendonitis, some things that you'll find in the medial part of the elbow here. So the biggest thing that we want to work on with that, two things really. We want to, number one, try to keep this as loose as possible here, the internal rotators of the shoulder, pec muscles, the pec major muscles here, as well as the anterior part of the deltoid, are the two muscles here working together to internally rotate this humerus here. So we want to try to keep those as stretched and as loose as possible. The more and more we're throwing, we'll use lacrosse balls, use foam rollers, use basic stretching exercises, those things, try to keep those loose. And then the second thing we want to do is we want to try and strengthen the opposite muscles. So the posterior part of the deltoid, as well as the upper back, the shoulder blade, all the muscles here in the upper back that bring the shoulder back and externally rotate. So we want to strengthen those muscles, and we want to loosen up these muscles, the internal, so we prevent this internal rotation, this tightness in this position here. Okay, so we can improve throwing speed, throwing velocity, and throwing power through some of these same strengthening exercises, because within muscles we have proprioceptors called GTOs, which are basically sensory units that send signals to the brain and kind of act as a braking force for different muscle actions, different movements. So think of a car. If you have bad brakes on your car, you're probably not going to go very fast. If you have really good brakes on your car and you trust those brakes, then you're going to allow yourself to go faster in your car. But it works the same way with those GTOs. So if the muscles in the upper back and the rear shoulder, all these muscles here that decelerate the arm or externally rotate the arm, if those are weak, think of that as bad brakes. So I'm not going to accelerate this motion as much if these brakes are bad, because I'm going to cause injury to these muscles back here. The same way, if these muscles are strong and stable back here, I'm going to be able to accelerate much more, create much more power and much more velocity this way, because I know my brakes are strong enough to decelerate that arm and slow down. And when I get to this end posture here on the release, they're going to be able to slow down that arm so I don't cause injury here, as well as an overstretch, over injury in the back here. So that's how we try to use some of these exercises to improve speed and improve velocity on the throwing, as well by creating better brakes, essentially, to be able to throw with more speed, more velocity, or more gas, if you want to call it that. All right, so I'm going to talk about a couple of exercises that we like to use here for our throwing athletes. The first one, band pull aparts. We're taking the band here, we're doubling up this way. This is an exercise that we're using to develop here the posterior side of the deltoid up here, as well as the upper back and the shoulder blades. So we're taking the band, holding it right out front, make sure our shoulders are relaxed and down here. We're pulling it apart, and we'll try to let you see the back side a little bit. As we pull the band apart, squeezing those shoulder blades together, working that back of the shoulder as well as squeezing those shoulder blades tight together toward the spine. That's an exercise we really like in general for a lot of people, but we like especially for the throwing athletes to work on that upper back and the rear part of the deltoids. We have these expand your hand bands. We like to use these to work on that hand or that finger extension. So we're kind of working on that opposite of that flexion. So we get to expand the hand, open up a little bit, work on these extensors here on the top side of the elbow. And then we also like to do for that internal rotation, we want to do some external rotation here. So something we'll use here, we try to keep the elbow steady here at 90. We want to externally rotate here with a weight, limit that internal rotation. We don't want to overdo that internal rotation. We'll come back with that again here. So that's another way that we'll try to strengthen and prevent some of that overuse stuff on the internal rotation of the elbow, as well as the flexors here of the hand and the forearm with a lot of that grip. All right, so that's what we do with some of our throwing athletes. I put a lot of emphasis on not only the injury prevention, the shoulder and the elbow for that, but we need to increase some power. We need to increase some strength and some speed on the fastball, on those deep out routes for the quarterbacks, as well as that hitting power for those outside hitters in volleyball. Look for us next week. Next week we're going to be coming with we'll be video 7 next week. So tweet us at CompStrength, hit us up on Facebook, Complete Strength Gym. You can email us info@livestrength, and look forward to seeing your questions, and we'll try to answer anything that you have in next week's video.
So you got 3 days off.
Injuries with the shoulder and the elbow. So I'm using football as an example. As you pitchers, baseball players, softball players. I also include volleyball outside hitters into this category of throwing athletes because it's real similar as far as the shoulder and the elbow goes. So